Hello, this is Professor Paul Gruhn from ICM590 Quinnipiac Project Planning, and I'm here with a coworker from Yale, Lynn Van Sweden. I've known Lynn now for a couple of years, and we've worked on a couple of projects together. And Lynn comes with a pretty good background in the area of project management. I'll just let her introduce herself and tell her a little bit about who she is and her background before we get into the topic today, which is project definition. Lynn?
Hi, yes, thanks, Paul. I've been in project management for about 17, 18 years. The majority of my experience was in manufacturing project management. Um, I found a passion when I found project management, and I fill a lot of my time with project management activities such as I'm on the board of directors for the Southern New England chapter of Project Management Institute and have been for about 6 years. I have done some presenting internationally for some Project Management Institute events, and now I'm here at Yale and really enjoying working on some projects such as content management solutions.
Right, right. I know you're working with a coworker, Kazi, on the FileNet integrations and
Yes,
stuff, which is
yes.
great. Okay, define project definition. Our students have, especially what's happening for our students is they are preparing for their master's project, what we call the capstone project. And our students have great ideas and all, but once you have an idea and their master's project, this idea, we have to start defining it. We have to define their project. So give us maybe not only just the traditional academic definition, but what's your definition of project definition?
Okay, that's a good place, I think, for everybody to start. And I know that there's a PMBOK definition of project management, and I believe your students have a copy of that. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk about some of the key words for project definition for me that
Great.
you're going to find in that in the PMBOK definition. And I always like to start with temporary. A project has a definite start and a definite end. And I think that's one of the key pieces. It is not something that is everyday functional, operational type of activity. It is a very temporary with a definite start and a definite end.
So for me, and the students are going to have some videos that I've done, for my last semester especially, home ownership is not really a project. But my remodeling the kitchen hopefully is a project, that it will start at some point and then end. And that's what I think you're saying.
Yes, and I'm sure your wife is hoping that that kitchen project ends.
Yes, and she'll be actually talking about that on some videos. So what are some other key words dealing with project definition? We have a start and an end, and that it's temporary. It definitely will end.
Yes, I think another key word for me is unique. It's delivering something that, again, it's not part of the day-to-day operations of the organization or the corporation. It is something unique. It has typically a very single goal in mind, such as upgrading a piece of software or implementing a piece of software or changing a specific business process.
So projects aren't the day-to-day things we can do. Oftentimes I've seen things like, well, if we were to break down brushing your teeth or getting ready in the morning, we could kind of break that up into a daily project, but that really isn't. That is a repetitive task that happens all the time. But if we were to maybe decide to get a filling or maybe have some new a tooth removed or something like that, hopefully that's a one-time project, and if you wanted to separate that. And so the real key here is that when we're thinking about projects, that we're thinking about things that are very compact. As you said, they have a start and they're not the day-to-day stuff.
Exactly. And the other piece, the last piece that I think is really key is it's a group activity. It's a collaborative effort. And I'll tell you why that's so important to me, I think, in the definition is oftentimes in corporations I have seen where the thought is that the project manager does the project. And in reality, that shouldn't be the case. The project manager should be facilitating the team of experts for the areas that need to be impacted and helping them. But for the project manager to really be the person doing the effort, you don't want me to do any of your coding, trust me.
Yeah, I know we don't. Matter of fact, I met Lynn on one of our upgrade projects for one of our software packages called Web Methods. And my coworker, Kazi, and I have been doing upgrades for the software package for the last 10 years. So Lynn came in and we kind of had this attitude that we didn't need her. But what actually we found out was that her strength and ability to not program, to not do any of the system stuff, but to actually help us make sure all the right players and all the right people did their job, allowed our project to be successful. So a project manager definitely doesn't have to be the person doing the work. However, in the case of the capstone projects, a lot of times some of our students will in fact be not only the manager, but they're going to be implementing the work. But I also know that it is not a requirement for the capstone project person that that you, the student, has to do all the work. You can engage and will engage other people. And the other thing I'd like to define slightly different here, and I've mentioned it and we'll mention it at other times. Right now, this is a project planning course. And we're in the phase one that the work for their capstone project might not start until next semester. But in the overall plan of project management, one of the big steps is the planning. So we are in step one of their project, and that is going to be define what it is. So why is chapter one, the Penn book and our textbooks basically put project definition at chapter one. Why is it, I've got my idea, why can't I just run with it and do it? Why is defining the project, we talked about what project definition is, why is it chapter one? Why is it so important?
I think it's important for several reasons, and I think that kind of goes into one of the other things we wanted to talk about, which is the key parts of it. For me, when I think about the importance of the definition, I start thinking about things like, well, how do I know what I'm doing? How do I know when I'm doing it? If I'm a member of the team, how do I know what I'm doing? Or what my responsibilities are, or where I fall in the team? One of the key things that I think it tells me is, what am I not doing? I think one of the very important parts, and when you're looking at defining your project, is you have to understand what is in scope, so to speak, but I think it is just as important to understand what is out of scope. And I don't think necessarily people give that a lot of thought sometimes.
I think you're absolutely right, because what happens is when we get involved in a project, a lot of great ideas happen.
Yes.
And our project, again, being temporary, having a start and an end, and oftentimes having a limited budget, and that we could get some great ideas.
Yes.
And those great ideas might not be a part of the project definition. So what happens if you get a great idea? I'm kind of jumping ahead a couple of chapters here, but it's kind of okay to say something is out of scope, isn't it?
Yes, it is okay to say it's out of scope. And if a great idea comes along the course of the project itself, once you've already defined that scope, and I'm sure you'll talk about this later, is you can always do what's called a scope change request. And that can always potentially capture some of those great ideas.
Great. In the area of project management, we've talked about what it is, and can you help us maybe come up with some tips or some elements or some approaches to writing a project definition statement? How, and maybe at the same time roll right into the question, if this is a good one, what are elements of a bad project definition? So as we're thinking about defining our capstone project, as we're thinking about various projects we're going to do at home, my kitchen project, as we think about things at work, how do I approach and what's a good project definition and what isn't?
So I'm going to start with what is it and what is a bad project definition. So for me, the worst project definition is one that doesn't exist. And I'm sure that you've experienced this too. You go into a project and there is no charter, there's no documentation, and to me, that is the worst or a good definition of a bad project. Short of that, a one-sentence definition. We're going to upgrade web methods. Well, that's pretty vague.
Right, can mean
Right.
a lot of things.
Exactly. And so to me, that is a bad project definition. So how do you get to a good one, right? And I'm going to jump ahead, I'm sure, a little bit in your class, but for me, writing a good project definition, I like to look at the knowledge areas. Have I at least touched upon them from a high-level perspective and given some information about that? And I also like to go back to elementary school and think about what are the 5 W's that we used to learn to write to? Who, what, when, where, why? And in the case of a project definition, how and how much.
Right.
Because if you have answered all of those questions to those whys, then you've probably got a good level of detail and information in your project definition.
What's interesting there is traditional academic books and assignments, and I know even in our class assignment, we don't have the who, what, when, where, why, how, and how much. That could almost be points that students might want to implement in their definition, and in this context, I'd definitely allow that, because sometimes it is good just to go back to those grade school principles that we've learned.
Yes.
I was thinking about my kitchen project. My wife and I don't have a written project definition. And there are times that I almost wish that we would, because on a given Saturday or Sunday, or when I start doing the work, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And how about for a student who is doing their own project? They know what's in their mind. Why do they even need to bother?
I think it kind of adds a little bit of structure around what it is you're thinking of doing or proposing to do. For example, with your kitchen, did that include new appliances? Did that include actually moving the parts of the structure? Or was it simply painting, maybe putting a new floor down? Because both of those could be considered remodeling the kitchen,
Right.
but they're very different levels of effort.
And in our case, it's all of the above. We have new appliances, new counters, we've done some demolition and all, and students will see some videos in that area. But I think you're right, that even if it's a project that you're doing yourself, that it's important to write down a statement, especially, most of these students are working on a project and they're preparing for ICM 601.
Mm-hmm.
This project plan and having that they're preparing, they're going to be able to take into their next class and say, this is what I want to do and why. This is, what it is, where we're going to do it, when it's going to get done, and how, and all of those questions. So I think it's important. So your tips basically are those who, what, when, where, why, and how.
How and how much.
And how much
Yep.
on top of that. Great.
Yes.
A set of terms, and we've got probably about 2 or 3 minutes left.
Yep.
A set of terms that gets thrown around a lot are vision, purpose, goals, and objectives. Do you want to, for you, how do you clarify those? And then in closing, what sort of tips or closing thoughts you might want to give our students?
Okay. I think for me, the way I like to think around vision and purpose and goal and objective is to let me give you an example, or what I think is an example. And so to me, I think a vision that many corporations have today is we want to be a paperless company. That's a vision, all right? So a purpose for that would potentially be that we want to reduce our backup hard copies. Nice purpose, okay?
Right.
But a goal would be that we want to reduce paper storage going forward. It's a little bit more narrow than what the purpose might be, but it's not quite as narrow as what an objective might be.
Okay.
An objective might be by 2015, we want to reduce our future storage paper reduction by 50%.
Great.
That means it's measurable, it's realistic, it has an end time, it's something that you can assign to someone to take on as a potential project to move forward with. So it meets all of those, if you're familiar with the term SMARTer objectives.
Great.
Right?
So Lynn, we've got about 30 seconds left, and I happen to know that that list of paper storage is very much in line with your thinking and the project you're on at Yale. What's your closing thoughts and comments to our students as they think about project definition?
Spend some time on your project definition. It's only going to benefit you further on down in your project. If you've given some thought again around to what it is you want to complete, what it is you're not going to complete, timeline you're going to be completing that in, and who might be helping you complete that. It's only going to benefit you.
Great. Lynn, as always, thank you very much, and I look forward to doing a couple of more of these interviews with you.
Thank you.